to the 2024 Stanley Cup odds. The Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in depth. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I will say this. Beal is not going anywhere because I don't think he has enough value. If Phoenix gets knocked out in the first round, especially if this is like a sweep or a 4-1 series win for Minnesota, you will see Kevin Durant and or Devin Booker being traded.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The Early Line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
sort
Night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here. Welcome to hour number 3 on this Tuesday on the Early Line on SportsGrid. It's our third and final, but there is still so much to get to. 3 more games, another triple header on this Tuesday in NBA playoff action. A huge night on the ice in the National Hockey League. I believe a quadruple header in the NHL Stanley Cup postseason. We'll go around Major League Baseball, all of that and more here in this third and final hour. But we also look back on what we saw last night to forecast the future for LeBron James and the LA Lakers. After the gentleman's sweep against the Denver Nuggets, the Lakers' 2023-24 campaign coming to a close. What is in store for LeBron and LA? It was the question we asked you in Fade the Public. Donnie right side, will LeBron James play for the Lakers next season? A rather simple question with maybe more complicated conversations, but simple choices for you at SportsGrid. That's where the Fade the Public poll lives. Yes or no? Most of the public, nearly 58% of the public, saying no. LeBron James will not return to the LA Lakers this upcoming season. Do you agree with the public, or might you be fading them?
I'm fading the public here. I'm part of that 42% right now through a couple hundred votes that says, yes, he will be back with the Lakers. Because when I look at LeBron James, where is he going? To the Philadelphia 76ers, the Boston Celtics, back to Cleveland, back to Miami, the Golden State Warriors. I don't think he's going anywhere here. He's comfortable in Los Angeles. He's been there for a half a decade or more than that already at this point. He's had success with the Lakers. He's won a championship there. Also, this is where his family now is centered around in L.A. And if Bronny James does turn pro, the Lakers will probably draft him because they don't want to lose LeBron James. Like, is LeBron just going to the Mavericks? Like, I'm just throwing teams out here because it sounds outlandish. Like, hey, man, can't wait for OKC and LeBron James next year. He's going to be with the Los Angeles Lakers because, as I already laid out, the Lakers are about star power. LeBron James is a star. You're not just giving him away here. He'll play for at least another 2 to 3 years with the Los Angeles Lakers. He will stay home. He's not going to pick up and move out of L.A.
Completely agree. Listen, I think the Lakers, and as the reports have already started to trickle out, as you would expect, following a close of a season for one of the biggest brands in basketball and the biggest star in the sport still, LeBron James. As soon as that season comes to an end, maybe the more intriguing off-season conversations already begin. And the conversation has been from FanDuel Shams Charania, the Lakers are hell-bent on bringing LeBron James back, that they will move heaven and earth to bring him back. His $51.3 million player option for this upcoming year, if he wants it. They might give him a 3-year max contract, even though he's going to be 40 at some point in December of the 2024-25 NBA season, and even beyond that, DRS. The Lakers could be interested in drafting Bronny James. As we shared, though, as of this moment, LA does not have a first-round pick. Is Bronny James a first-round grade for the 2024 NBA draft? That's a different conversation. But I think the main conversation being the Lakers are focused on bringing LeBron James back. What that means for the Lakers' ability to win a conference championship out west or an NBA championship in the Larry O'Brien Trophy, again, that might be a different conversation. This one is LeBron James going to return to LA. I would agree with you. Again, I'm in the 42% alongside you, DRS, that has voted for yes. LeBron James will play for the Lakers next NBA season.
Yes, and here's how it's going to work. We're not worried about slot pay here for Bronny James. He's a LeBron James's kid. His slot pay is going to be fine for the next 60 years, whether or not he plays basketball or not. So the reason I bring this up is, it's not so simple where, let's just say, I don't know, Charlotte Hornets trade up to the 25th pick, bump up from the second round back into the first round and draft, Bronny James at 25th overall. LeBron just goes, I'm not going there. And they go, oh, well, we just wasted our first-round draft pick here on Bronny James. That's not going to work out. It's simple. NBA teams are going to reach out to LeBron James. Hey, is there a chance that at 24 we draft your son and you come play with us here? And he goes, yeah, that sounds great. I will do that. Then LeBron James possibly could be on the move. But LeBron James just puts that feeler out through Rich Paul and goes, I don't care what happens in the draft. If you draft Bronny James, I'm staying in L.A. Therefore, Ben, you know what? Nobody drafts Bronny James except the Lakers in the second round, and he gets the best of both worlds here. That's how the real world works. Not the 7th overall pick is Bronny James to Charlotte, and they go, oh, good, looks like I'm going to Charlotte next year. No, he just has to say, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in L.A. We're going to draft Bronny James, and if you want to waste your pick on my son, go ahead and do it. I'm not coming there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Again, it's not like there's going to be some surprise where a team trades up to the lottery to draft Bronny James in the hopes that LeBron goes, I've always said I wanted to play with my son. I guess that means I'm buying a house in Charlotte, North Carolina. No, that's not going to be the case. Could the Lakers then get involved in the Bronny James sweepstakes? Maybe. Again, it has been largely said already by NBA scouts, front office personnel, this 2024 draft, not very good. One of the worst they have seen in the last 2 decades. The best pick in this draft, the best selection maybe in any NBA draft, is LeBron James. Obviously a number 1 pick that you're going to have as a part of your franchise for decades to come, like a Victor Wembanyama, is a better pick than LeBron James. The point being, though, if you can get LeBron James, even at the age of 39, soon to be 40 next December, through the middle part of the 2024-25 NBA season, he is still one of the best players in the NBA. Look at the numbers. 71 games played this year, better than 35 minutes average, nearly average 26, 8, and 7. He is still playing at an incredibly high level. The Lakers lost last night, not because of LeBron slowing down. 30 points, 11 dimes, 9 boards. If LeBron James wants to play into year 22 of his NBA career, you want him on your basketball team. That might be the most generic and easiest statement ever to say, but it does ring true even next year in a year 22.
And, of course, LeBron James at the post-game press conference not going to give you the immediate answer. Yes, I'm staying in Los Angeles. Everything is fine. It's no big deal. Because what LeBron has done very well over his career post-leaving Cleveland for the first time is demand greatness out of the ownership group. Do you remember when he went back to Cleveland? It was basically with Dan Gilbert and goes, I'm going year to year. You give me every single thing I want, I stay. You deny me on one thing, I will opt out of this contract and I'm gone here. He's doing the same thing with the Los Angeles Lakers. And as I said before, when you talk about the Kobe Bryant situation, where he was getting up there in his career and the Lakers weren't as good a team, they still want that superstar power. They're not just going to give up on LeBron James at this point. And that means spending a second-round pick to get his son to keep your best player happy. Every organization would do that here. And Ben brings up a great point. It's not as if LeBron James' son is the number one overall draft pick by a wide margin and goes, well, top team's going to get him. I'll go there. He's not, which is perfect for LeBron. He can actually use this to his advantage. Yeah, spend the second-round pick. That guy's not going to make our team anyway, but if it's my son, he's going to make the team, and nobody's going to have a problem with that. And nobody else around the NBA is going to spend that first-round pick on Bronny James unless they think they're getting LeBron James, because otherwise that's a wasted pick and talent there in the first round. So there it is.
Listen, there are Bronny James prospect conversations to be had. Obviously, he did not have a great year at USC in his freshman campaign with the Trojans. Part of that was health-related, the heart condition that happened over summer workouts for Bronny James. Is Bronny James capable of playing as a two-way guy in the NBA, something of the sort? I think so. Is he going to be a five-time NBA All-Star? Probably not. Is it worth it to keep LeBron James? I would say yes. It just seems common sense. It's not the idea of like, oh, here's a statement. Bronny James needs to play in the NBA, or Bronny James is only getting the benefit of the doubt because of his name. If he was Ryan Smith, it would be a different story. Sure, all of that is true, but it's not itself. It lives in a vacuum, and it's all part of the context. Now, what will the Lakers do? That's a different story. They don't live up to expectation once again. They're in the play-in tournament for a second consecutive year. It seemed as though Rob Pelinka in the front office in LA did a decent job of surrounding LeBron James. But we see now in the NBA, teams that kind of grow up together are actually the teams that are paying dividends, like the Celtics and the Nuggets and elsewhere in the Western Conference. MLB talk next.
The 2024 Stanley Cup odds, the Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in net. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government, or someone you would say in legislation, to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here, because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Daily Bases, live right here on this Tuesday on the early line on SportsGrid. I am Ben. Donnie's on the right side. The man in the middle is Craig Mish, our MLB insider here across the SportsGrid network, the host of Newswire that starts at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Craig, as always, we appreciate the time. Thanks for being here on this Tuesday.
Of course, great to be back with you guys here as we really now head toward what is the meat of the baseball season, turning the month of April into May. We have a lot of teams that are still going to fight for this thing. A couple, unfortunately, that look like they're out. But regardless, we press on.
So, Craig, let me ask you that question to start. Calendar changes tomorrow. Wednesday is May 1st. We are pretty much past the month point of this MLB season. It really began on Thursday, March 28th. How much does your evaluation of these clubs around MLB change just because the calendar says May starting tomorrow?
I think there is something to that. I do think that there's a lot of narratives built into sports. And if we're going to do that, I think baseball is fair to do it with as well. A lot of folks look at Memorial Day as really the time to determine whether you're a buyer or a seller. So we're sort of a month away from that. And so I think for teams like Houston in particular, I think that's one team the month of May is going to dictate a lot as to whether or not they're going to stick in this or not. I think the Toronto Blue Jays are another team that's underperformed a little bit. You wonder, are they going to be in or out? And then we have to see, Ben, if like a team like Cleveland can sort of stick around here and fight. I think we have to at least acknowledge at this point that the Oakland A's have played way better than anybody would have imagined right now. Everyone was pounding that 54 under. I mean, the team is only a couple of games under 500 at the end of the month, too. So yeah. I think by the end of May, we'll have a much better indication. But I definitely think you see some teams like Baltimore, who are in it. They're going to fight for this thing. That, LA, they're in it. And then conversely, teams like the White Sox, you just know that no matter what happens, they're going to be out of it. And unfortunately, it does appear the Marlins, are one of those teams also that as the calendar months turn, they may play hard, but they're not going to be in the race.
Two buyers here, Craig, particularly at Camden Yards at the New York Yankees and the Baltimore Orioles. Great game yesterday. Great pitching matchup. 2-0 win for the Orioles. They'll do battle today at 6:35 p.m. first pitch. Nestor Cortez, the left-handed pitcher, will be on the mound today for the Yankees. Dean Kramer will be on the mound here for the Baltimore Orioles. A total of 9 across the board, 80 degrees, wind blowing out today, and a slight for the Yankees at a -122 price. Bounce back for the Yankee bats tonight. How about it?
Yeah, it could be, Donnie, but I got to say that, the Orioles bullpen's pretty good. So what you're going to get today is a start from Dean Kramer that's going to be in like the 5th or 6th inning. The last time Kramer pitched, I believe he struck out 10 Angels, the team that I told everybody here on the show that we're going to go under their win total. And then a couple of weeks ago, Ben Stevens put one eye up and said, well, here you go, Ben. There's your under. There's 7 games under 500. We haven't even gotten to the end of the month. That's beside the point. The Nestor Cortez, who's on the other side of the mound tonight, goes very deep into games. If I'm interested in anything tonight, it would probably be Cortez's K-prop. He does seem to be the guy that we saw a couple of years ago. He's 100% healthy. And when you're betting these K-props, and I see these all over social media, this guy over, no one ever talks about guys that go deep into games. That's the predominant reason I think that you want to bet an over on a K-prop. So for me, Cortez is somebody to look at tonight.
So, Craig, when you look at these two teams, technically tied for the top spot in the American League East at this moment, very early on. Baltimore 18-10, New York now suffering the loss yesterday, 19-11. The O's a slightly better win percentage, tied at the top now. Do you expect these two teams to battle for that number 1 spot in the American League East all season long?
Yeah, well, I definitely think Baltimore will, and before the year, that's who I had, so I'm going to stick with that. You have to acknowledge sometimes when things are going a little different than what you thought, as far as at least watching, analyzing, or handicapping. I did not anticipate the Yankees getting off to this kind of start like they have, which is a good start for them. I still am not fully sold on them, but the other part of this, too, that seems to be discussed a little bit industry-wide here, and again, we do this every year with Tampa Bay, and then in the end, Tampa Bay, they get us, right? At the end of the season, they're right there. But boy, I got to tell you, this year, the Rays haven't looked like the Rays. And so that could potentially alter my thinking a little bit if time sort of runs out on them and they decide to go another direction. That could really propel the Yankees up a little bit. But still too early to call for me, Ben. I'm still in on the Orioles.
Over 500 on the West Coast here. That's the Los Angeles Dodgers. Picked up a victory yesterday over the Diamondbacks in a high-scoring affair. We're probably expecting more runs today. Why? At the FanDuel Sportsbook, we're listed at a total of 9.5 runs. A slight favorite towards the Dodgers at a minus 112 price. Knack versus Montgomery. Are we looking at more runs out there in the desert today, Craig?
Oh, the jokes write themselves, right? I have a knack for this pick, right? I have a knack for picking games. Yeah, I follow baseball pretty closely, playing in these fantasy leagues and everything else. I don't know a lot about this Knack guy. I'm just being honest. I don't know a ton about him. I mean, he went to a small college. He's not a 22-year-old pitcher, not a high-end prospect. I don't anticipate him going more than 5 innings today, and the odds are more or less even. I got to side with Arizona today, and I got to ride Jordan Montgomery and believe the Diamondbacks are going to win today.
We've seen two pretty short numbers on the Dodgers. Yesterday, minus 134 money line. This one, a slight favorite at minus 112. But as you saw, just that 8-cent distinction. The Dodgers have been booked as a favorite in all but one game this year. That's 30 of 31 to this point. Similar story for the Atlanta Braves. Despite the walk-off winner last night in Seattle, Mitch Garver, the 2-run shot in the home half of the ninth to walk it off for the Mariners. Atlanta is the road favorite today in Seattle. Craig, what happens in game number 2 of this series?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say the Braves could bounce back in this one yesterday. Max Fried with a fantastic matchup. Seattle, to me, is one of those mystifying teams that we'll have to keep an eye on as the season goes along. High expectations for them. Probably no play for me tonight on this game, but certainly the Braves are the better team of the two.
Minus 130 now, that line working in favor of Atlanta. Hasn't been a great start to this year for Luis Castillo. He's the pitcher tonight, though, for Seattle. National League pennant odds, it's still a race of the two at the top, the Dodgers and the Braves. And then Philadelphia slotted there with that 7-1 price, third best. But, Craig, the Phils lost yesterday in Anaheim to those Halos. Another win for Los Angeles. Just saying, we got to stay under 72.5, but the Royals off to a great start as well, so I'll let you slide. Craig, thank you so much. We'll see you on Newswire in a little bit less than 40 minutes at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. More Major League Baseball plays up next.
The 2024 Stanley Cup odds, the Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in net. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Look at that. Ready to go here. Freeze frame, people. Get your popcorn ready because it's time to talk some Major League Baseball at this point. We'll get Ben back in a few moments here, but why don't we start? Now, we talk about May coming forward, which is only roughly in 24 hours now. Tomorrow we will have May, Ben. So just like that, you get out of here. I'm trying to host the show, talk some Major League Baseball. And by the way, the good part about this, too, is we weren't talking hockey. Like, you want me to spin on baseball, we can go for an hour. So it was kind of like, oh, look, I'm on the screen right now, and Ben's not paying attention. No, Ben was just lost there. So, Ben, we're talking about the Houston Astros and the Guardians. Would you like to set this game up for me, or would you like me to continue?
I mean, this is going to be a big betting day for you, DRS, because you correctly predicted maybe a technical blip in that last commercial break. And sure enough, almost on cue, it's like the technical gods here at SportsGrid heard and honored your wishes. All right, you were talking about Cleveland and Houston. Well, the Guardians at this moment have the best record in the American League, second best in Major League Baseball, only behind the Atlanta Braves, who are now 19-8. We expected the Astros to probably have the best record. At some point, it's been quite the opposite. Houston 9-19, ready to go after the return from Mexico City back at home. The Stros a -166 home money line favorite. Hunter Brown has struggled to start this year, but despite that, Houston with Brown on the bump, -166 home money line favorite.
Yeah, let's take a look at this. And also, so we have enough backlog of talent for these pitchers here, which means, how many innings have they pitched so far? Let's just take a look at 20 innings pitched on the season coming into today's card. One of those guys you certainly want to be fading today, it's Carlos Carrasco. If we take a look at the 25 pitchers that have a minimum so far of 20 innings pitched here on the card today, he's 21st out of 25 with an xFIP minus of 121. Keep in mind, don't worry about the terminology itself. 100 is the baseline. Anything above that for a pitcher is bad. He's at 121, so therefore that's bad. Take a look at Carlos Carrasco on the season. If we take a look at ISO power numbers here, Ben, between lefty and righties combined, 220 and a 381 weighted on base percentage. That's bad. Take a look at the batters here today of how they line up against right-handed pitching this season for the Houston Astros. Altuve, 338 ISO. Alvarez, 213 ISO. Tucker, 211 ISO. But also, we have at least, it looks like 5 batters here at a 333 or above in weighted on base percentage. So if those RBI shots you want to focus on from left-handed batters, that's going to be Alvarez and Tucker in the middle of that lineup. If you want to go right-handed, look, Altuve usually is always a very good option. So Altuve, Alvarez, and Tucker are the focus today if you're looking from a Houston perspective. Let's flip it over to the other side. Now, Hunter Brown, based on the numbers I'm looking at, doesn't actually have 20 innings pitched on the season because he's been really bad. He's not lasting that long in the games, Ben. 93 batters that he's faced, a combined ISO of 185 and a weighted on base percentage of 458. However, the Cleveland Guardians lineup today going up against right-handed pitchers hasn't been that fantastic. So if you're trying to single out the side of the plate that Hunter Brown, a right-handed pitcher, is actually struggling with more is not lefties, it's actually righties. But the problem coming in here, we don't have a lot of dominant righties in this lineup. I do expect runs to be scored, but from an RBI prop, more from an Astros perspective for me, Ben, than a Guardians perspective here.
Only 1 minute left. No, that's 2 minutes left in this segment. Next up, we go to Fenway for some interleague intrigue. I mean, this technical segment going off the rails. We go to Fenway, though. The Red Sox won the final 2 games of their weekend set against the Cubs. They walked it off on Sunday Night Baseball. They scored 17 on Saturday against the Cubbies in blank Chicago on the other side. Can Boston continue the momentum on this Tuesday? Booked as a home money line underdog against the San Francisco Giants.
They should be an underdog. Let's take a look at Logan Webb. As I just told you about Carlos Carrasco, 21st out of 25 pitchers I ranked today on the card. You take a look at Logan Webb. He's top 5, Ben, and that lists him at an xFIP minus of 80. It's almost a role reversal. Anything below 100 is very good. He's at an 80. That's sensational. Look at Logan Webb on the season, batter for batter here, Ben. 152 batters that he's faced, an ISO power number against those combined lefty and righties, 062. How about a weighted on base percentage? 266. That is absolutely fantastic. Now, it is going to be a battle, but we're looking on the East Coast here. In our area, in the tri-state area of around New York, Philadelphia, New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, it's warmer temperatures. It's not that way in Boston today, Ben. 52 degrees at first pitch, so not even getting a lot of help. Maybe an under on this environment, but I like San Francisco because the pitching matchup, Ben, is in their favor today.
And that's why Logan Webb and the Giants are booked as the favorites. The Phils lost yesterday 6-5 in Anaheim against the Angels. Can they bounce back today? Philadelphia minus 142 money line. I'm betting the Phils today. Also, keep the Angels under. NBA triple header preview next.
The 2024 Stanley Cup odds, the Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in net. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
A triple header of NBA playoff action on this Tuesday. That means 3 games. 2 of the 3 series feature a potential series clinching spot tonight. And we start with the first. Inside Madison Square Garden, the New York Knicks hold a 3-1 series advantage over the Philadelphia 76ers. And New York, based on the odds, favored to win this series in only 5 games tonight. New York now a 4.5-point favorite for game number 5. Total stands at 203. Will this series follow the odds? Does New York win the series tonight inside the Mecca?
Let's take a look at some things that are changing here over the landscape over just the last half hour here. Overnight, that line is minus 5.5 as a favorite here at the FanDuel Sportsbook towards the New York Knicks. Now we see it been at 4.5 here, so that line is dropping. Total of 201, now up to 203. And I do agree with that. I think we get a little bit more scoring than we saw in that last game. That was a battle in Philadelphia that Brunson won out in the end over Joel Embiid. Now here's the question. Does Brunson even have to beat Joel Embiid tonight? And what type of performance will we get from Joel Embiid? Because he missed shoot-around this morning with a migraine headache, which can be debilitating if anybody knows how migraines work. So maybe extra Imitrex here for the big man before he plays tonight. But it seems like we're already building in those excuses for the Sixers, which also includes Kelly Oubre, who missed shoot-around, who's not feeling all that well. So in a game where if you lose, you are getting sent home, the stories are starting to write themselves. So for my money in this game, it's going to be tough for me, Ben, to sell you, Ben, on what actually is going to happen in this game as a positive notion for the Philadelphia 76ers. Because what do you usually want to happen? That happening with the other team, not the team that you're looking to back in this game. So if you come into this game and you bet the Philadelphia 76ers and say, I'll take the 4.5 points, I think they play close, and B plays well, Oubre plays well, Maxey plays well in what we know is going to be a hostile environment in the Garden. So be it. But I'm not going to be the guy that says, hey, I'm going to bet the Sixers. And I'm like, wait a second. They're down 26 at the half because Joel Embiid could barely get up and down the court with his headache here. I can't be on the Sixers tonight for that type of information. Now, granted, later in the day, we'll get some updated information on who's in, who's out, and who's feeling better, and that could change my mind. But when the bad vibes start coming out the day of the game, or the morning of the game, I should say, and not in a positive direction, it's hard-pressed to find me, the Sixers on the road, getting a victory tonight if their big man isn't 100%, Ben.
It's a good point, DRS. When you look at how this series has played out, we are already starting to build in the narratives and the conversations. With that being said, both Oubre and Embiid, more importantly, JoJo, still have their props listed on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Always an indication of who is going to be available and out there. Joel Embiid, 32.5. But it's not the highest number in terms of player points tonight. That would be Jalen Brunson, 34.5 for the New York Knicks. He went over that number in both games, 3 and 4 in Philadelphia. He has attempted at least 26 field goals in all 4 games, but he was inefficient actually inside Madison Square Garden. Much better at the Wells Fargo Center over the weekend in Philly. 47 in game 4, 39 in game number 3. Also double-digit assists in both of those games. His assist prop tonight, 8.5, and the over has some plus money. When we look at this game overall, Philadelphia now an underdog once again. How does that play for the 76ers in this matchup? As we have looked at this series, Donnie, in these 4 games so far, the New York Knicks were a home favorite in a home underdog in home favorite, got that all mixed up, in game number 1, did cover that game winning by 7, did not cover in game number 2, also a 4.5 point favorite. Now that 4.5 point spread once again. What do you think of the total tonight? 203, lowest number we have seen so far in this series.
And by the way, watching game number 4 in Philadelphia, now they had an okay scoring first quarter, but it was evident right away that was going to be an unbelievable game that was going to be played that, yes, if you take a 3-1 series lead, you're going to be in the driver's seat, or the Philadelphia 76ers evening that game up. That was going to be big. And 3-point shots weren't falling down. That was an easy under to take a look at if you're just one of those guys who, you know what? I don't really know how this game is going to go. Let me check in about midway through the first half. Easy under. I do think we get more scoring tonight. But having said that again, we're handicapping this game early in the morning with Joel Embiid is questionable for the game. So if Embiid misses the game, this number might as well be 9.5 at game time, because we told you earlier with Coach on the difference between Joel Embiid on the court and off the court. It's night and day. The Sixers won't even be able to hang around in this game if he's not there. And also, keep in mind, bad shooting performances usually don't translate over to the next venue, right? It's like, okay, that could be a one-off here. The reason I bring that up is guys like Dante DiVincenzo, which were 3-point mavens throughout the regular season, particularly at home. He was very good in games 1 and games 2, disappeared in 3 and 4. So if those guys, the B guys, I'm saying, are able to shoot the 3-point shot and make open looks here, that's going to open everything up. I'm not going to bet the under 203 tonight. I look for more as a total going over tonight. But again, that's predicated on Joel Embiid playing tonight and playing well.
So Philly won game 3, 125-114. The only time in this series they have scored more than 105 points. That total was 205.5 at the time, the lowest in this series. It goes well over. Game 4 total was on the rise by about 3.5 points at 209. Neither team gets to 100. Game stays well under. We have now dropped the total by 6 points. Feels like a slight overreaction. I actually like the over tonight inside Madison Square Garden. The other clinching spot is a road team favored inside the Pfizer Forum. Indiana up 3-1 in this series and a 4-point favorite in Milwaukee. We do not expect, and based on this line, for either Giannis or Damian Lillard to play tonight. Total now up by 1.5 to 216. Is it over tonight in Milwaukee?
It better be over tonight. And the reason I bring that up is if you're not going to get Giannis or Damian Lillard, I don't care that this game is at home in Milwaukee and it's tough to win on the road, which I get it is specifically in the playoffs. And you're probably going to get a good punch out of the Bucks even without their stars. But don't give any momentum back to Milwaukee where you could turn the page and say, All right, the Bucks made it through a game where they thought they were going to lose. Giannis comes back. They win another game. And then Damian Lillard miraculously heals up that Achilles here and says, you know what? It's feeling better today. I'm going to give it a go. You look at that line, and it screams the Pacers are going to close this thing out. Opening up as a 3.5-point favorite overnight. That now sits at 4. Even some outlets out there, Ben, showing 4.5, a total of 216. This should be a Pacers game tonight. So if I'm betting this, right, and I'm saying to myself, what would you like to see out of the Pacers? You want to see them put their thumb down immediately from the opening jump right through to halftime. Don't give the home crowd a chance to get into this game. Be up 5 points at the end of the first quarter, 7 points by the half, where you can't look to Giannis and or Dame coming off the bench to save you in this game. Put them down early here. That's the way I would bet it. I do think the Pacers win. I'm not going to lay the 4 points full game. I'll take the first half here because I want to know if the Pacers are for real right out of the jump, and I believe they will be.
It's been pretty easy to follow the correlation between team that wins in point total in this series. Milwaukee won game 1, only under we have seen. Indiana has won games 2 through 4. Every game has gone over. The Pacers have been that up-tempo, paced-up team all year long. Game 3 needed overtime to send us over, but Indiana has scored at least 120 points in games 2, 3, and 4, all 3 victories for the Pacers. And Donnie, we're getting to that point, right? When a season comes to a close, quickly the attention turns to an off season. What's going to happen in Phoenix? We expect this group to be very different next year. We have talked a lot about the future of Los Angeles and LeBron James. Same questions tonight in Philadelphia for the future of this 76ers organization and in Milwaukee, both head coach and otherwise, if both teams get closed out in 5 games in this opening round.
There'll be big changes on both teams, but think about the 76ers here. Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey will be back in another open slot there for a max contract with Tobias Harris leaving. So if you're the Sixers and you lose, there's still some optimism next year you can rebuild and build around. I don't know where Milwaukee goes head coaching-wise and superstar player-wise. I don't know if it gets better, but the Sixers have a chance to improve themselves and actually get scoring and get great play out of a guy like Tobias Harris who never provided that. But you know what? That contract for the next guy, it just might.
Tobias Harris, a max player.
Toby!
10.5 is the points prop. Gotta go over on the ice with Anadua up next.
To the 2024 Stanley Cup odds, the Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in depth. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Our third and final game of the triple header on this Tuesday night around the association is not a clinching scenario. It is, however, a change of venue back to Cleveland. Donnie, the story of this series has been whoever has had home floor advantage, they win and do so rather easily, and the losing team can't break 90 points. Do we see the same thing happen tonight back in the land between the Cavaliers and the Magic? Cleveland booked as a 5-point favorite against Orlando. Total, not as low as maybe you would expect at 202. Will the theme of this series, home floor advantage, low-scoring games, come to fruition once again in Game 5?
I hope so, because I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. I need them to advance to cash in on a parlay ticket. And this series couldn't have started any better for me with the Cleveland Cavaliers at home. So my thought process was the Orlando Magic just aren't ready for prime time. Even though they're going to go home, I expect at least one game victory here in games 3 or games 4 for the Cleveland Cavaliers and a chance for a gentleman's sweep once you get home to Cleveland. But the fact of the matter is, like, Cleveland didn't even show up in Orlando, Ben. It was they got smacked around in games 3 and game 4. Like, you couldn't even build on it. Like, hey, you know what? Lost by 2 points, lost by 5 points. Good to get back on our home court. So is this one of those equations where the Cleveland Cavaliers think they can just turn the gas back on here? They can flip that switch and win this basketball game with ease? I hope that's the fact here. But the momentum clearly no longer with the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's with the Orlando Magic. I look at that 5 number, and even though I am rooting for the Cavaliers tonight, I don't know if I can lay the 5 with them, even though what I saw in games 1 and 2 seemed like it was 2 years ago, Ben, even though it was 2 games ago.
Certainly so. Listen, Cleveland in games 1 and 2 won both by at least 10 points, covering as a 5 and 5.5 point underdog, respectively, in those 2 games. Pretty similar number here. As we shared, Cleveland went on the road to Orlando, struggled to put up points, didn't break 90. The Magic won easily in both of those, and Orlando scored 121 in game 3, 112 in game number 4. The Magic becoming the first team in this series to break through the century mark. Because even in the games in the land that Cleveland won comfortably by double digits, they did not score 100 points. I'm going under tonight, 202 for game number 5 in the land. Friezo, you want to tell me if we're ready? Are we ready to go here? To switch our conversation now to the ice, we are very pleased to welcome on Anna Dua from the NHL to help us preview a huge night in the Stanley Cup postseason. Quadruple header, Anna, of game number 5s, and we'll look back on the 2 games that we saw last night on a Monday as well. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. A lot of action on the ice right now.
Lot of action indeed. We start looking back on last night. Sunshine State showdown between the Panthers and the Lightning. Of course, Anna, last year it was Florida, the magical 8-seeded run to the Stanley Cup Finals. This year, Florida has been expected to be the team to be there at the end of the road. They handled Tampa in only 5 games. Big victory last night in Sunrise, 6-1 in game number 5 to clinch this series. Is Florida looking the part of a Stanley Cup favorite at this moment?
They absolutely are. I think this year's Florida team is so much stronger than last year's team. No one really expected them to do as well as they did last season, but they had a statement victory over the Tampa Bay Lightning to advance. And also, Tampa's not an easy first-round opponent, and Florida held them to just 1 win in that entire series. So this might be the team to beat right now. They're looking really deadly.
Anna, take a look at game number 2 last night with the Stars and the Golden Knights. You play all season long in the NHL to get home ice advantage because it means a lot. And also, it's not just the crowd here. You get the last shift change here. So take a look at the Stars and the Knights. The Stars pick up a 4-2 victory last night to even it up at 2. Nobody wants to win at home. Does that change in the next game for the Stars, or is this just going to be road wins all the way through?
You hope it does, because you're right. They fought all year to get that home ice advantage, so they want to take some benefit out of that situation. Dallas really concerned me there. I'm not going to lie. After game 2 of this series, I had them coming out of the West, and Vegas just looked ready to go, but they're slowly crawling back. There's some players like Wyatt Johnston who have really stood out to me in this Dallas series, but he's so young, so you wonder if it just took him like a couple of games, 4 games to find his footing in the postseason, and maybe this team eventually will have enough chemistry to be dominant at home, because they're going to need that if they make it out of the West. They're looking like some really good teams out there too.
It is crazy, too. The Stars have been a road ice favorite in both games they have won in Vegas, the odds expectation. Now we move it forward, Anna, to this quadruple header. That's 4 games on this Tuesday night. All 4 games feature a series with a team up 3-1, having that advantage, looking to clinch in game number 5. The Avs, the only team on the road tonight that is up 3-1. Who is most likely to clinch their opening round set tonight?
It's got to be the Carolina Hurricanes. I think the Islanders barely held on and avoided that sweep by getting 1 victory in the series, but Carolina's been the dominant team throughout, and they're the team that I feel the most confident in clinching this right now. They should have swept, to be honest. The Islanders did get 1 well-deserved, hard-fought win to say they didn't get swept, but I cannot imagine them getting a second one here, so Carolina is the easy answer for me.
Anna, talk to me about this game tonight, 7 p.m. It's the Bruins and the Maple Leafs. Now, also, the Bruins are at home as a favorite tonight. If they win, they'll close out the Toronto Maple Leafs. So 2 things here. Do you think the Bruins will do that tonight? And if they do, what happens in the offseason for the Maple Leafs? All those struggles in round number 1 once again.
Yeah, listen, I'm from Toronto, so this is a sensitive subject for me. This series in the postseason all the time gets us going, but this is not the way the Maple Leafs wanted to play. That last game that they had was probably one of the most concerning performances I've ever seen from this core group in the postseason. And usually something happens, they're close games, they make it to a 7-game series, and they end up losing, and you wonder what they could have done differently. This year, they just look in shambles right now, and tonight, I guess it all depends on what Leafs roster is out on the ice. Austin Matthews is having some problems behind the scene. William Nylander has been having some issues back there too. So you really don't know the status of these guys. They practice without Austin Matthews this week. And if that's the case, the Boston Bruins definitely have the momentum in this series. And if the Leafs only get 1 win in the postseason, they're definitely going to have to figure something out because it cannot continue going like this for this squad.
The Leafs finally won a playoff series a season ago, and Anna, Donnie is a Flyers fan, so if you want to take a shot at Philadelphia, feel free at a later date as well. Maybe some more hockey talk on the other side if we can fly through the rest of the games. And to Anna's point, Carolina minus 255. Heavy home money line favorite tonight to close it out against the Islanders. A few more NHL Stanley Cup playoff thoughts on the other side, and a best bet to come next.
To the 2024 Stanley Cup odds, the Hurricanes remain the favorite, followed by the Panthers and the Rangers. Interesting that they all are coming from the similar side of the bracket.
While the Oilers have the top-end talent, I still don't think they have enough depth, and Stuart Skinner does not scare me in depth. So I will take a long series from the Oilers and the Kings, and ultimately I think the Stars are the ones coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anna Dua is still with us here for a second consecutive segment when there's a quadruple header of Stanley Cup playoff action on the ice. We need her thoughts on all 4 games. She gave you the opening thoughts on tonight's matchup in Beantown. Now we go down south to Carolina. Anna, as you said, the team most likely to clinch tonight with a Game 5 victory, that would be Carolina. The odds makers agree. A -255 home money line favorite. And it's not just tonight. The Canes also the favorite to win Lord Stanley's Cup. Are they looking like that Stanley Cup favorite to you so far in the opening round of this postseason?
Yeah, I've had the Carolina Hurricanes winning the Stanley Cup since the preseason, and I did not change that at all because this team really surprised me at the trade deadline. They're usually a team that makes no moves, but they brought on Evgeny Kuznetsov and Jay Gensel and just really added some more depth to this squad, and it's already a ridiculously deep team, and their goalies are playing well, their forwards are playing well, their defensemen are playing well. There's no issues I see with the Carolina Hurricanes right now, and the statement they've made against the Islanders, despite not sweeping them, has been definitely something to keep an eye on. They look like they're the strongest team in the postseason right now. Maybe them or the Florida Panthers is who I'm going with.
All 4 games tonight with a chance for elimination. The Avalanche are on the road for a chance for the elimination, going up against the Jets here. If we take a look at a slight favorite for Colorado tonight, can the Jets force another game, Anna, or the Avalanche move on tonight?
I think the Jets can. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, but the playoff atmosphere in Winnipeg is like nothing else in this entire world. They go out in Winnipeg, so it's a very tough arena to play in. They have the pieces they need to actually be competitive. I really like the Winnipeg Jets heading into the postseason. I had them beating the Avs in this round. It doesn't look like it's going that way so far, but their team is not performing their best. If every guy just buckles down and plays the way they played in the regular season, this is a deadly Jets team that I think could not reverse the entire series, but at least get 1 or 2 wins out of here. I don't think they end it tonight.
Total tonight in Winnipeg, a place that Donnie right side knows very well, is at 6.5. The Avs have scored at least 5 goals in all 4 games so far in this series. And a game number 4 in Nashville was crazy. The Canucks scored in the final 6 seconds of regulation to force overtime. They win it in OT. They take a 3-1 series lead back to Vancouver. That's where the Canucks are tonight as a slight home money line favorite, hoping to clinch this series, -120. So what is more likely? The Preds bounce back or the Canucks ride the momentum into a series win?
This is the biggest toss-up there is out there because Vancouver really fought tooth and nail to get that win. But when we're looking at this squad, there's a huge concern between the pipes because Thatcher Demko's out right now, and so is Casey DeSmith. So you wonder when they had their goalie tandem just missing how long they can keep this going. They're a great team. I had them beating the Preds in this round, but Nashville went on a crazy win streak down the stretch. They've showcased that they're also a very talented team, and they deserve to be in the playoffs. And you can't win the Stanley Cup without a good goalie, and missing 2 goalies, that's a huge, huge blow for Vancouver. So I wonder if Nashville just takes advantage of that and runs away with the series.
So, Anna, 4 Canadian teams in this postseason, 2 on the brink of elimination. That's Winnipeg and the Toronto Maple Leafs. 2 just 1 win away from advancing to the second round. Will a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup? It hasn't happened since 1993. Anna, is this the year?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen this year. It hasn't happened in my lifetime. I had all 4 of these teams advancing past the first round, and I don't even know if that's going to happen. So I think Edmonton's looking like the best bet right now to make a deep-ish run. But the way Dallas has bounced back against Vegas, I'm feeling pretty good about them. Colorado looks deadly as well. And out in the East, mentioned Carolina, mentioned Florida. I just think there are too many good teams down here in the States. But hopefully soon, guys. I just want to see the Stanley Cup come back to Canada at least once in my lifetime. That would be great.
The last one, the Montreal Canadiens back in 1993. Hopefully soon, Anna. Hopefully soon. Anna Dua, thank you so much for joining us here on this Tuesday on the Early Line. All right, quickly, we fire off a best bet for this huge Tuesday night slate that we have. So before we say farewell, before we say goodbye, it is time for Bye, Bye, Bye. DRS, it's like the old days of Bye, Bye, Bye. Quickly, what's your best bet tonight?
Yep, you could go to the FanDuel Sportsbook. You're going to find a team total for you tonight. The worst pitcher on the card is Michael Soroka on the worst team in Major League Baseball, which is the White Sox. You take a look at that lineup for the Twins. It should explode tonight. So a team total over for the Minnesota Twins. That's where I'm going tonight with my best bet, Ben.
I go to the NBA playoff slate in the triple header that we have. I actually like a total in every game. I go over inside Madison Square Garden of 203 between the 76ers and the Knicks. I go under in the land 202 between the Cavs and the Magic. And I'm going to ride the over of 216 between the Pacers and the Bucks in that game in Milwaukee as well. We'll see you tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, a Wednesday on the Early Line.